Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today, I'm just kind of relaxing, taking a little bit of a break from the house project. We're still building our house right now, and we're really rushing. And the reason for that is we've got our first child on the way next week. We're in the single digits right now as far as days between now and then, and it's super surreal. But I'm trying to get this house done so we can move in and not have to go back into the fifth wheel when we bring her home. But Riley Elizabeth is going to be here next Thursday. Really excited for that. But took a break and just figured I'd do a real quick video. My apologies. I've been doing a video every single day for the most part since January, but I've missed a couple, and it's just because I've been just so focused on this house project and so busy. I mean, it's just incredible how much time, energy, and money goes into a project like building a house like this. So sorry for not being as regular as possible with the videos, but I'm going to try to keep up with them, especially with the baby on the way. But today I wanted to do a video on working with a co-angler or boater. I want to try to touch on that subject from both perspectives, because over the last few years I've been fishing what was the FLW Tour and then became the MLF Pro Circuit, and they didn't have any co-anglers, so I haven't had really that many co-anglers in the last 4 years. They just had marshals. That's a lot of the things that I'm going to be talking about today also are pretty relevant for having a marshal that doesn't fish too. It's not just for the angler, the co-angler that you're drawn with who is also fishing. But I've kind of come up with a system over the years that changes from person to person and tournament to tournament and how I'm fishing and things like that. But I think it's really important to think about the angler or the person that you're drawn with, whether you're a boater or a co-angler. I think that a lot of people tend to just be focusing on the fishing. And I'm a big believer in controlling all the variables that you possibly can control. And to me, control may sound a little harsh, but one thing that you can control is the dialogue and the communication that you have with your fishing partner. And so I try to step up and take charge and communicate with that person right off the bat. And also, we have a responsibility as boaters to make sure that the safety of the person that we're drawn with out there on the water is safe throughout the day. So we're also going to talk about what I do as a boater to recognize that responsibility and to kind of prepare them for some emergencies out there on the water. So first off, let's talk about communication. Communication is absolutely key with your fishing partner, whether it's boater or co-angler. And so many people get this part wrong. It's unbelievable to me how many boaters and co-anglers don't communicate properly, and then you hear stories of them butting heads and all these things, and it's so easy to avoid all of that just by communicating a little bit and kind of setting some ground rules and kind of explaining things. And so we'll start at the very beginning. So the first interaction you're going to have with your boater or co-angler is probably that the night before, having a phone call or meeting with the person at the actual tournament meeting. And the usual questions are, what time are we going to meet? When, what should I bring? What type of fishing are we going to do? And this first interaction is really, really important. Obviously, first impressions are a big deal. But to me, it's really important to set them up for success for the next day. Okay, a lot of people think that they have to be very, very nebulous or very muddy the water, I guess is a way to put it. when it comes to their co-angler. Like, they don't tell them how they're going to fish, what style of fishing they're doing, all these things. It may seem like a good idea to be unclear and to kind of be secretive about what you're doing. But to me, the most frustrating thing, and I'm sure that co-anglers are the same way, the most frustrating thing to me on the water is having a co-angler that's not prepared, that's sifting through a pile of 10 rods, that is all tangled up from a run, and asking for baits and asking, which isn't a big deal. Like, if you need something in my boat and I have plenty of it, it's all good. You can have it. But ruffling through tackle, having too much tackle, all these things are because co-anglers don't know what they're going to be fishing. So boaters, make sure to tell your co-angler what you're doing. You don't have to tell them the exact bait, but tell them, like, for instance, if I'm running docks, and I had a tournament that I ended up winning, this 2-day BFL, and I told my co-angler the exact baits that I'm throwing, the docks that I'm fishing docks really, really fast, so don't bring slow-moving presentations. And by telling them what exactly you're doing, you're setting them up for success. Doesn't mean that they're going to catch more fish than you. It just means that they are going to be more efficient, hopefully more efficient with the tackle that they're using. So you're not distracted with them cycling through all these different rods that they had to bring, all the crazy tackle that they had to bring, and all that. You allow them the opportunity to reduce the amount of tackle they're bringing, and to allow them to focus on fishing, which I think will help both of you in the long run. That's my perspective on it. Obviously, I hate to say it this way, but I don't like it when my co-angler beats me. I don't think anybody truly does, but they're not going to beat me because I don't want to beat them out there on the water because they're ill prepared. I want to beat them at the top of their game. Not that is the whole goal as the being a boater and a co-angler. You're not really fishing against each other, but sometimes that's how people kind of see it, because you are fishing for the same fish in a lot of instances and things like that. So, but I want to make sure that my co-angler is set up right, because it helps me fish a little bit cleaner myself. So communicate what you're doing, what type of tactics you're going to be using. If there is some type of what approach and casting angle issue, like if you're paralleling riprap all day and your boat is really close to the shoreline to the point where they don't have a cast forward of the boat, tell them that and let them know, hey, listen, I'm sorry that this we have to fish this way, but this is just how I'm getting my bites. To me, that is totally fair. Like, that is not unfairly prohibiting a co-angler in my book. I think that a boater, because of how much they have invested in each tournament, they have the ability to choose their casting angles, as long as it's not specifically done to limit the co-angler's ability to catch fish. If it's just done out of practicality for being able to catch fish a certain way, I think that's fair, but let your co-angler know. Because then, and then also one thing that I like to do is, like, if I'm doing something that is kind of a hard scenario for a co-angler, I'll think of ways that they can catch fish behind me, and I will let them know those ways, because oftentimes they're fish that I would never catch anyways, because I'm so focused on something else. Like, say I'm fishing docks or a grass line, and I'm working pretty close to that grass line. I'm being very thorough. I'll be like, there's a lot of fish out here, on this flat. You could try throwing, a turbo fatties or something on that flat instead of pitching to the same places I just pitched to on the grass line. So you can give them suggestions that will allow them to be happy, catch more fish, and be less disgruntled. So I guess the whole idea of this first interaction is just set them up for success, because it's not going to take away from you in most situations. It's only going to enhance your ability to work together as not necessarily a team, but you really are kind of a team. Even if you are trying to catch fish for different scenarios, for a co-angler and a boater. But anyways. Then ask them if as a boater, you need to ask if they need a seat on the back, need to make sure that they know that they have a cooler open, and that whether or not you're going to be bringing ice, if there's anything that they need to bring for you, those sort of things. And then also set up a meeting time. I never need my co-angler to help me put my boat in the water. I always get there super early, and usually I just have my co-angler meet me at the dock, something super simple. But actually think about the logistics of meeting in the morning, and that'll kind of relieve a lot of anxiety going into a tournament day. But so the morning of the tournament, so we just talked about the initial conversation, and really that initial conversation I kind of went into a little bit more detail than I probably should, because the night before, what I'll do is I'll tell them how I'm fishing, what depth range, all the different things that I think that they should know so they can be more prepared. But the morning of, I'll go into more detail, and maybe that's when I'll bring up the conversation about hey, we're paralleling banks today. I know that you're not going to have a whole lot of great casts doing the same thing that I'm doing, but here are some other options for you that I know you can catch fish doing. And so, that's when you can kind of bring that up. Another thing I talk about, obviously, in the opens, we don't have nets anymore, or we don't have nets in the opens, but, in the past, fishing the Toyotas and the BFLs and stuff like that, you can use nets. So I'll have a net talk. Like, that is one of the most important things that I don't think nearly enough boaters do with their co-anglers before a tournament day. And you always hear stories about co-anglers knocking fish off, jabbing at fish, or getting hooks stuck in the netting, that sort of thing. Bad net skills, and the boaters are always complaining about how they didn't do it. I'm like, well, did you give them the net talk in the morning? Did you tell them exactly what you want? And they're like, no, well, I guess not. And I'm just like, well, that would probably relieve a lot of those issues. So make sure you talk to your co-angler about the net, okay, and what is expected of them, and then also ask them what they want as far as net etiquette. So for me, I don't need the net for every single fish. So I tell the co-angler, only get the net if I ask for it. If I ask for the net, I appreciate haste, with it. And then once, we're ready to net a fish, do not jab at the fish. Don't dive down with the net to try to get a fish that's beneath the surface. I want to bring the fish to the net under most circumstances. Now, every circumstance is a little bit different and requires a little bit of spontaneity and flexibility. But, for the most part, I want the net in the water, quarter of the way, halfway down, and I bring the fish to them. And at that point, if the fish's head is up, they can kind of scoop underneath, but never where the fish is under the water and they have to jab at it. So however you like to have your fish netted, this is a great time in the morning before you blast off to communicate with your co-angler with your preferences. And the same thing as a co-angler. Make sure your boater knows what you prefer. And if it's just, hey, listen, you just focus on your own thing, a lot of co-anglers are that way. They'll just say, just focus on you, and don't worry about me. But however you want to have your partner net your fish, that's an important conversation to have, and it can really relieve a lot of stress, because I think that a lot of anglers in general don't have a lot of experience with netting fish, and there's a lot of nerves involved. And so you can take away a lot of that anxiety by giving them that talk early on. Another thing that I like to talk about is as a boater, I tell my co-angler every morning, let me stand up first. Okay, so when we stop at a new location, you know, the habit right off the bat for most anglers is for both of you to stand up. So the co-angler can go to the back deck, you can go to the front deck. One thing I like to ask is, because it's a limited amount of space, is that the co-angler stay seated until I get to the front deck, which is going to be in a flash. I'm not dilly-dallying at all. So I just don't want to have to, like, dance, square dance to be able to get out of the console. So that's one thing that I'll do, and that's just a efficiency point for me. Another thing that I like to do is I give them the safety talk. This is something I've never, ever heard another boater do. But listen, if the incident with Nick Kaler down at Lake Okeechobee taught us anything, it's that we are too lax with safety in this sport as a whole. And we are responsible for whoever is in our boat. So making sure that they know where the fire extinguisher is and all the other safety gear is super important. I've got a Yeti, a waterproof duffel bag that I keep in my boat that has all the safety gear that we possibly need. I tell them, listen, if things start getting hairy, that is the bag that we reach for. It's got flares, it's got it's got spare clothing, it's got charging, like little charging boxes. It's got first aid cards. It's got CPR cards, survival cards, emergency bivvies, emergency tent, first aid, extra food, a little bit of water. There's all kinds of stuff in that bag, but I tell them where all the safety gear is, and when I expect them to grab that. And sometimes I don't do the safety talk as thorough, or sometimes I've even missed it, because like at Eufaula, I literally fished within eyesight of the ramp the entire time. And so I didn't really get into the safety bag. But if we're going out on Sam Rayburn or Toledo Bend or Lake Erie or Champlain, anywhere where where you're going to have to pretty much be your own first responder, I'm going to be giving them the talk, especially if it's a rough day. So make sure that you have proper safety gear in the boat, and tell your co-angler where it is. And believe me, this comes from my experience guiding in Alaska. You will not believe how important that gear is until you need it. And I don't think that bass anglers as a whole, just because we're usually fishing in metropolitan areas where there's a lot of emergency resources and first responders to call, I don't think that we really take that seriously enough. But, I was out on Lake Erie several years ago running 95 miles each way from Sandusky, Ohio, all the way up to Anchor Bay on St. Clair. And I'm in the middle of Lake Erie in 4 to 6 footers for 45 miles, just looking around like, man, I need a VHF radio and a PLB. So that's another thing that I've got in the emergency bag. So, but anyways, at the very least, tell your co-angler where there's the fire extinguisher, the Class 4 throwable cushion, all those emergency items that Coast Guard requires you to have. Make sure your co-angler knows exactly where they can find them in an emergency. Other than that, just give them a real quick, run through on like how to start the boat. If you get thrown out of the boat or something, they need to start it. Just, most of them are going to know how to drive a boat. Most co-anglers have boats themselves, but just make sure that they do. And make sure they know how to pull up, coordinates on your electronics in case they need to phone that in. Again, a lot of this is overkill, but it's from my time in Alaska, working up there, and I think it's very important. But all All right, so safety is another thing that you want to talk about. What else do I end up talking about? I let them know, where they can put their gear. I usually keep the compartment behind their seat full or open for them to fill up. I also give them kind of the run through of how my mood is going to change throughout the day. I think this is part of the communication that I think is really important. I tell them, hey, listen, I'm going to be a very talkative guy once things start flowing. I'm in the zone, and like once I'm in the zone, you're going to have a hard time keeping me from talking. But first thing in the morning, for the first couple hours, I'm probably going to be pretty quiet. So I tell them that right off the bat. Number one, that helps them kind of gauge how they need to interact with me early on, and it also means that they're not going to have to struggle to read me and read what my emotions are. So we're kind of on the same page there. And then I also open up the communication where I say, hey, listen, I'm going to be focused on fishing. As a boater that has a lot on the line as far as points, as far as, a classic or whatever it may be, whatever my goals are, I'm going to be focused on fishing. I'm not going to think about you at all on the back deck, but I don't ever want to limit your opportunities or keep you from being able to catch fish. Obviously, the opportunities are different for boaters and co-anglers. Boaters get prime casting angles, and co-anglers kind of have to adjust to the boaters, what approach, how they're doing it. But I don't ever want to do something that intentionally, limits their opportunities. So what I tell them is, I'm not going to be focused on you on the back. I want to have good conversations and have good camaraderie and all that. But as far as fishing goes, I'm focused on how I'm going to get the next bite, as they should too. But if there's anything that you think that I'm doing wrong and that you feel slighted by, let me know right away. And so that may be an obvious point for most people. You may think that, yeah, obviously if you're doing something wrong, they'll say something. But a lot of people, if you don't have that conversation early on and you don't offer up that opportunity to communicate, people might just hold it inside all day. They may not want to confront you, but I give them an opportunity. I say, let me know if there's something that I'm doing that you think is not giving you opportunities. Let me know, and then we will negotiate and figure out a way to do that, or I'll just completely change what I'm doing. But I just want to be made aware of something that you think is wrong. And I don't have a whole lot of people complaining at all, but I've had plenty of situations where them voicing something made me aware of something that I was not aware of to begin with, and allowed me to adjust, and we both fished very, very well and had a really good time on the water together. So letting people know that you are open to communicate is, I think, very important. And listen, yes, we're fishing, and some people like to think that, the co-angler is just going to have to adjust to me. You're going to have a hard day with some people if that's your approach. If you don't want to communicate with people, it's not just being nice. It's actually out of necessity, because I know that I can't fish well if I'm butting heads with the person on the back deck. So do everything you can to control that variable and to control the communication. Other than that, I may let them know about some of the baits that I'm throwing, and if I have enough to share, sometimes I'll share those. But I'm trying to think of something else that I tell them about. I don't know, but in general, I just try to be a good guy and try to communicate with them as much as possible, keep things light on the boat, get to know them a little bit better. You know, a lot of us during blast off will focus on our buddies, you know, at the blast off there, and we forget about the co-anglers. I do the same thing because, you know, I got my buddy floating over there. I got to go talk to him. But make sure that your co-anglers and their co-anglers, while you're having conversations, are involved. Again, man, it just makes everybody's life way easier if everybody's having a good time. And so I think that that's very, very important, not just from a being a good dude standpoint, but from a fact that it's going to help everybody fish better. So anyways, guys, those are just some of my thoughts. Hopefully you take something away from this video. Let me know your perspective, whether you're a boater or a co-angler. Do you agree or disagree with these things that I was talking about? Either way, I hope you guys the best in all future events and all the interactions you have with your boaters or co-anglers. And I'm going to get back to working on the house. So thank you for watching. Make sure you like, share, subscribe. I'll see you out on the water, maybe on the back of my boat.